Good evening, everyone. We're going to open up with the Eagle Mountain Community Facilities District first, so we'll do a roll call, please.
Chairman Dickey.
Here.
Vice Chairman Charno.
Present.
Board Member Tolis.
Here.
Board Member Brown.
Here.
Board Member Magazine.
Here.
Board Member Leckrone.
Present.
Board Member Spellich.
Present.
Thank you all. Grady?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, the first item on the agenda tonight is the Eagle Mountain Community Facilities District proposed tentative budget. For your reference and for the public's reference, the Eagle Mountain Community Facilities District was formed by the Town Council in fiscal year 1996. The purpose of the Community Facilities District was for the purpose of constructing infrastructure in the Eagle Mountain subdivision. That particular Community Facilities District is due to end after the end of next year. So this is going to be this will be the last budget that the council will adopt relating to the Eagle Mountain Community Facilities District. The budget before you is for $407,240. The levy is estimated to be $1.2189 per hundred of limited property assessed valuation, compared to 1.35 for 100 limited primary property assessed valuation for the current year. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the mayor and council may have.
Thank you, Grady. First off, we'll approve the minutes. Could I get a motion for that?
So move.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions about the agenda item that Grady just described? No? Thank you. I don't have, okay, so someone needs to make a motion, correct?
Well, with that, I'll go ahead and move approval of the motion as written in the paperwork.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you.
Aye.
Motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor say aye, please. Thank you. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so now we'll do the Cottonwoods. We'll call this meeting to order of the Cottonwoods Maintenance District. Could I please have a roll call?
Chairman Dickey.
Here.
Vice Chairman Charno.
Here.
Board Member Tolis.
Here.
Board Member Brown.
Here.
Board Member Magazine.
Here.
Board Member Leckrone.
Present.
Board Member Spellich.
Thank you.
Present.
I'll do it right this time. We'll please have a motion to approve the minutes from last year.
So move.
I'll make a.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Grady?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, the item before you is the proposed tentative budget for the Cottonwoods Maintenance Improvement District. The Cottonwoods Maintenance District was formed by the Town Council in June of 1999 for the purpose of maintaining and improving the common areas of the Cottonwoods subdivision. The Town Council, just like the Eagle Mountain Community Facilities District, serves as the board of directors for this entity. And the total budget for next year proposed is $6,642. Unlike the Eagle Mountain Community Facilities District, this is a maintenance improvement district, so this is an ongoing operating budget that will be around for basically forever to be able to maintain the improvements that are in the Cottonwoods Maintenance District area. The annual cost is paid through an annual property tax assessment of approximately $114.52 per property owner. It's levied and collected by the Maricopa County. I'd be happy to answer any questions the mayor and council may have at this time.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Motion?
I'll move approval as written.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thanks so much. And a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So now we will go into the real meeting. And please stand for the pledge and remain standing. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks. Let's just take a moment of silence, please. Thank you very much. One more time. Roll call, please.
Are we sure we're? Mayor Dickey,
Here.
Vice Mayor Charno,
Present?
Councilmember Toles,
Here.
Councilmember Brown,
Here.
Councilmember Magazine,
Here.
Councilmember LaCrone,
Present.
Councilmember Spellich.
Present.
Thank you all. Welcome on this Cinco de Mayo. We'll go into our activities and reports. I'm going to start with Grady, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, you were probably aware that the governor last week made some major announcements relating to the re-energizing Arizona business again. Last week, he made a proclamation, or excuse me, a executive order talking about restaurants opening up and also some other services. We went ahead and, along with that, we went ahead and mirrored the governor's executive order to the mayor, who then did an emergency proclamation. As part of that emergency proclamation, we also opened up a number of park amenities, such as the dog park, the skate park, pickleball courts, tennis courts, basketball courts at all of our parks. We also opened up the main restroom at Fountain Park, beginning on Monday as well. We will be opening up the remaining restrooms on Monday next week at all the other parks. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. I know that the mayor has another announcement somewhat tied to that she's going to be talking about.
Thank you, Grady. Mike, we had a meeting with Valley Metro?
Yeah, just real quick, we did have a online meeting with some Valley Metro personnel and continuing to update our transit study that hopefully will be in its final form to present to full council sometime after our summer break. So we're making slow but good progress on it. And, as we know, we do have some money that we get every year, and we need to spend it toward transit type issues. So we're just trying to come up with the best way to be accountable with the money and serve our community as well. So it was a good meeting, and look forward to more updates.
Thank you, Mike. Art, do you have anything that you wanted to report on? I know you were in your car in a little parade that we had.
Well, we did have a car supporting some of the local residents in some of the assisted living facilities around town, and we had about 25. You were one of those cars, along with myself and many others, and I think it went well, and it was just very quick, organized by an individual in town, and it was nice. It was a nice way to celebrate one woman's 90th plus birthday, and she was in the driveway, and I think it made her day, and I'm sure it made lots of people's days, and just tried to uplift people's spirits. So we did participate in that last week on Thursday morning, I believe.
Thank you, Art. David, do you have anything you'd like to report on?
Mayor, just briefly would like to touch on the fact that the town has lost a great resident, Mary Wright, wife of Dr. C.T. Wright, who was on the school board and involved in so many things in Fountain Hills. So if we could just keep Dr. Wright and Mary in our thoughts and prayers.
Thank you, Councilman. I'm sure we'll hear more about that and what we can do to help, and we appreciate your words. Councilman Magazine?
Nothing, Mayor.
Thank you. Dennis, you have anything?
I do. I'm just hiding at home, hoping to stay safe.
Thank you. Sherry?
Well, I wanted to touch on what Councilman Spellett said, and I agree with all of the things he said about Ms. Wright. I really was saddened to hear that news, and our thoughts and prayers are with him, and I know it's a tough time for him. So, but I didn't have any other news to report because I've just been working from home and trying to manage as the rest of you are.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman. As Grady was talking about, the governor came out with 2 extra executive orders, so we had 2 quick emergency proclamations, because every time that happens, we do an update so we can incorporate whatever the new provisions are. So, and again, the park amenities, that was something we had ourselves. So if anybody wants to see the actual language of any of this, you can go to our website, which is fh.az.gov, or the Arizona Governor, azgovernor.gov. You'll be able to see, and sometimes if you want to see the press release, which kind of explains it a little bit better. Just more regular routine. I had MAG Regional Council meeting, a Greater Phoenix Economic Council webinar, and our the governor's office was communicating with us, and also a lot of information from our 2 U.S. senators and Maricopa County. So we're keeping all those lines open. So last year, Fountain Hills became member of what was called the Be Kind Project, which was a youth development nonprofit, and 5 million young people nationwide have taken a pledge for respectful, responsible, and considerate relationships with others. So they sent an email asking us to proclaim the month of May as Make a Difference May. And it sounded nice, reminded me of our Make a Difference Day. But to tell you the truth, when I got the email with everything going on, I just almost sent my regrets and just said, oh, there's just so much going on right now. I'm feeling a little down, but then I thought, this is like really apropos right now. It's good reason to make this statement, to encourage others. We are appreciating their efforts of support and gratitude. So I'm going to read it, and then we'll send it to the organization, which is actually, it's a national organization, but it's located in Arizona. It's a local group. So just real quick, whereas from school closures to canceled events due to the COVID-19 public health crisis, from social distancing to increased unemployment, we need more than ever to find a common purpose. We need peace, order, and civility, and can do that by building trust, understanding, tolerance, and kindness. Kindness is acting intentionally to extend good to other people. And whereas the Be Kind People Project is a national public nonprofit based in Phoenix that defines the skills of kindness as be encouraging, supportive, positive, helpful, honest, considerate, thankful, responsible, and respectful. And whereas it takes strength, courage, and wisdom to practice and commit to the clear understanding of kindness, and it's important to the well-being and success of our community that we not only recognize the importance of kindness this month, but in our day-to-day engagement and make a difference. So therefore, I, Jenny Dickey, Mayor Fountain Hills, do hereby proclaim the month of May to be Make a Difference May on the 5th day of May 2020. So we'll get that out to them, and we do appreciate them asking. Like I said, it was very apropos right now. That is it, and I think for reports, and we'll move on to scheduled presentations.
Mayor?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's Alan.
I'm sorry?
Can you hear me?
Not very well. Go ahead.
Is that better? Is that
Yep.
better? Okay. I just wanted to piggyback on one of the previous items. I saw Governor Ducey's announcement the other day about loosening up some of the restrictions, and I thought his presentation was excellent, and I think the thinking behind it was very good. My concern is that he made that announcement prior to the latest statistics that have just come out, showing that the number of deaths are likely to more than double, and that problems are going to be rampant throughout the country. Obviously, as we look ahead, our sales tax becomes a major issue. But also, I think we have to do what we can to help the food bank. People and businesses are suffering, and I think we have to be as vigilant as possible as these new outbreaks occur.
Thank you, Councilman. Appreciate that. If there isn't anything else, we'll move on to our presentation from our chief to talk a little bit about maybe some of the stuff that Alan just mentioned and other efforts that we're taking here on behalf of our community.
I'll just say a few words before Chief Ott comes up. This is one of those little-known other duties assigned. Chief Ott, as our fire chief, has a responsibility to perform and conduct himself as our emergency management director, and has a major role to play along with that in our emergency operations plan. And so he's been very active ever since the COVID outbreak, and has been very much keeping the organization and myself apprised of major issues or policy things that we need to be doing as a community. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Chief Ott, who's going to be providing a briefing to the council.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thanks for having me. From the beginning of March, we were kind of involved with Maricopa County Department of Emergency Management. Before things kind of got going in Arizona, we'd had conversations between the IGA partners that we actually meet regularly anyways, and it had kind of been thrown out early about, maybe we're going to see some effects from what the pandemic is and how it's hitting the rest of the country. And so we actually had our first partners meeting with Maricopa County Department of Emergency Management and Public Health about March 17th. But prior to that, we've been working. Around the 17th, we also stood up the town's Emergency Operations Center, kind of virtually, and a modified version of that just basically had a few of the town directors involved in it, as well as the town clerk, so that we could kind of get a handle on what we wanted to do in the town, how we wanted to address it, what it was going to affect, identify essential services, and kind of work down that route in case we had to move into it. And then the shelter-in-place order came out, or excuse me, the stay-at-home order came out, and I think we were all pretty well set to do that. We kind of worked with Mike Chickarone to be able to get VPNs up and allow people the ability to keep the town running and not have to come into the physical building to do it. A lot of the departments had kind of rotated their staff coming in and out, and I got to give Mr. Pock credit because this is his high volume time and trying to get the budget done and doing it with limited staff and working remotely, and I think he's done a great job. And pay no attention to what my P card charges were, please. But some of the numbers that get thrown out, well, let me back up a little bit. Some of the other things that we've done, and a big part of it had to do with community services department and being able to take things like home delivered meals and expand that program out so that not only were they delivering meals, but they were also being able to chase down and pick up groceries and other supplies for people that were more homebound that could kind of work through the system and do it. The Give a Lift program was also a big part of that. It's kind of a tough situation when not everybody has the ability to go out and either through the internet, buy things online and have them delivered or have them ready for pickup. But I think Rachel's department did a great job on getting us through that and all the challenges that they had with closing the parks and the playgrounds and eliminating programs when everybody was at home with their children. So I think overall we've done a very good job as a town, and in listening to the other cities and towns on our partners meetings, it's kind of funny. Originally they were set up, we were going to do meetings every day, and then as things did not develop as rapidly in the state and even the county, they kind of dropped it back to where we have a once a week meeting with Maricopa County and the Unified Command with public health in it, and then we also have a public health partners meeting once a week. Those are on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I think that when they unified that command and brought those two divisions together for the county, it was really a big plus and made things a lot simpler on our end of it. We were also able to get some personal protective equipment supplies from the Strategic National Stockpile. We've yet to need to dip into those through Rural Metro and our company, Central Arizona division. We kind of do a daily inventory. We go through our burn rate, which is how much equipment we've actually used. Rural Metro actually has a pretty good stockpile down at their fleet division, so we've been able to draw out of that when I wasn't able to get supplies through our normal supplier. It's kind of frustrating sometimes to go in and order supplies, and it'll pop up and won't even let you put it in your cart because it's not available. So I've bought some things that maybe were a little frivolous just so I could get a shopping experience in there, but and feel positive about that. But some of the numbers that we kind of look at, I tend to look more at the global recovery numbers. The fatality number is kind of staggering, but I like to look at the positive side of it, that there have been over 1.2 million people in the worldwide that have recovered from it. So it is a recoverable illness. If you put stock in the zip code tracker, we've held steady for 4 or 5 days with 27 cases in the 85268, which is Fountain Hills zip code. The news is reporting that today was the highest death rate so far with 33. But what they did not include in that was that there were 0 fatalities reported yesterday. So if you take a look at all the numbers and the numbers that come in, and it's traditionally been that the numbers coming in after the weekend are typically a little bit slower because there's not as much activity, maybe not as much reporting. So 33 today, does that really equate to people that might not have been counted from Sunday through today? So some of the numbers, there's a lot of math, and they're kind of statistics, sorry. And sometimes numbers mean something and sometimes they don't. I think when you take a look in the numbers that are staggering, just never seem to stop. And we're up to almost 400 deaths in the state, but it pales in comparison to New York, which is close to 20,000. So I think that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and one of the things that we need to keep in mind, because I think we will have a positive outcome to it, is that we did the declaration to declare the emergency. We'll also need a declaration to end the emergency. So when the timing's right. So, are there any questions?
Any questions, Mike?
Mayor, Alan.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Alan, is that you?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Alan.
Do we have any way to assure that businesses are abiding by the guidelines?
I didn't hear.
Distance?
Mayor, Councilman, are you asking about businesses that are abiding by the guidelines?
Yeah, is there any way to assure that they're doing that?
That's more of a Captain Kratzer question, but in the conversations we've had in the past, I don't believe that we've only had one business so far that's actually had any sort of an issue, and through education, I think we've worked through that.
Okay, thank you.
Mike?
Yeah, real quick, Dave, one question. You mentioned the 27 for this zip code. I mean, I know it's kind of, you're not that tracking, how accurate that is. But would you happen to know if that includes any, long-term care facilities? I know there's been some issues with their reporting and stuff. So do you have any feel for that, or?
Well, one of the issues that kind of came up when they first started tracking by the zip code was that if there was not a good known residence for the patient that had been tested, they would go back to the facility that actually tested that person and got the positive result. So it could be, an example would be if someone came down from Payson or tested at one of the labs over by your office, that might come back as a positive for this zip code when the person turns around and goes back to Payson. So to answer your question, as far as the long-term care facilities, I'm not aware of any directly related to that. I can tell you that in all the transports that we've had, the Honor Health will notify us if we've had someone that we've transported that had a positive test, and to date, we've only transported one person that had come back with a positive test. So for our guys, everybody's healthy. Our PPE is working. Nobody has gotten sick from the virus, and it's kind of for us, it's another hazard as part of our job, and that's what we're trained for. So.
Thank you.
Chief?
Yes, ma'am.
Chief, has there been any discussions, and if you can't give details, that's fine. I just wanted to know, in the meetings and groups that you're involved in, have there been discussions about with the reopening of things? And I know I've been seeing on the news with other states that there are hot spots. If there are hot spots, how those are going to be dealt with?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember LeCrone, I think that overall through the state, that outside of the Navajo Nation, I think the exposure has been relatively limited, but through things like the blitz testing that started Saturday, which we don't really have any numbers on, and again, the numbers are going to go up for confirmed cases with the more people we test, but what we need to kind of keep in mind is the relationship of the percentage of the people tested opposed to the number of confirmed cases. Haven't seen anything in any of the plans, and there's been no discussion at the unified command level of whether or not there would be phased approach openings due to one area being maybe more of a hot spot than another. So I think as things move forward, we'll see it as kind of an across the board. I do believe there was a little discussion about if someone didn't feel comfortable, a mayor or council didn't feel comfortable about opening an area, that they may lag behind a little bit, but which is acceptable. You can't go ahead of the governor, but you could always do whatever you felt like would be more appropriate for your area.
If I may, just to respond to Councilmember LeCrone's point too. So basically, we are following a phased approach. I should say the governor is, and the cities are kind of following in line with that. Still, a lot of the activities that would generate social gatherings and such are still going to be pretty much banned. So concerts, sporting events, things of that sort, pro sports, right now movie theaters, those types of things are going to come online at some point, but they know that those are like hot spots, to your point. So a number of types of activities are going to be limited as we start opening up our businesses and retail restaurants and places of that sort. So they are very cognizant that they don't want to get back into having the numbers start going up again. So they're going to be very cautious as they open. And our governor, I have to give him credit. I think the governor has taken a lot of criticism, but I also think that he's been following the numbers, the medical advice from his director and also from the Dr. Fossey at the federal level. So I do think that decisions are being actually made based on medical advice and matrices and whether they're met or not before things are opened up. So I think everything in this state is going the way I would anticipate that it should be going.
Thank you. Any other questions on the phone?
Mayor, it's Dave.
Yes, sir.
I would kind of like the chief's opinion as well as Grady's in possibly spearheading a way that we can offer or we can look into getting the fire department as well as the deputies that work in Fountain Hills the opportunity to get antibody testing. I know that it's really coming online from what I've been told. I don't know what the fee would be or what the charge would be for getting our town first responders antibody tested. I've heard figures of 100 to 125, but I think it's something that, especially if there's a chance that this virus could reappear over the wintertime later on in the year, I think it would be beneficial for us to know, the first responders in town, that have already, might not even know it, be asymptomatic, but know that they have the antibodies for it. I think it would be something that we should definitely look into.
We will definitely do that.
Madam Mayor, Councilman, I appreciate looking out for us. Our medical director for Global Medical Response, who is the parent company of Rural Metro, Lifeline Ambulance, American Medical Response, and Air Medical Group, which is a large number of people, and they have the ambulance companies up and down the eastern seaboard and have been highly affected by the virus. They are making arrangements for antibody testing throughout the company. One of the last memos we got from Dr. Reich, who is the medical director, came out yesterday, is that he feels that they need to do a little bit more probably quality control on the antibody testing, and that there are some false positives, false negatives that can come out of it, and it might, at this point, might not be as advantageous, and the PCR, the nasal swab, is the most preferred method at this point. So, but we'll look into it, and I can get back to you on when that would be available for us. I can't speak for Captain Kratzer and MCSO, but I know we'd be more than happy to give them nasal swabs if they wanted it.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I had a discussion just yesterday with my doctor because I wanted to go get a test as well. And he said, do what you want, but he sort of talked me out of it. He said, they're so unreliable, as Chief just said, false positive, false negatives, and I'm concerned that if we have staff people going to get those tests, that it could worry them unnecessarily.
Thank you, Alan.
I may add one other thing to it. At this point, too, that whether you test positive or negative for the antibodies, they're still not sure how that will affect your immunity, and if it resurges, if that will have an advantage for you or not. But
Yeah. I'll ask if anybody else has a question, but today there was an article about it, and then the president of U of A was on, because they came out, I think, a couple of weeks ago saying they were going to test everybody there, and the test that they're using has been more vetted, I don't know if that's the right word, than anybody else's, and there are, like, I guess 100 of them out there that just aren't really reliable, but that this has a more potential. So I think, like Alan said, and to your point, things are progressing and more information is coming forth. But there are some that seem to be better than others. I guess that's what his message was, and that's what they're using there. And he is a doctor too. I think you know that. Any other questions on the phone? Thank you. I want to thank you very much, because one of the things that Rachel and we heard early on were that there were folks that maybe they're not necessarily in the Give a Lift program, and they weren't in home delivered meals, but they could not go and wait online to get into a grocery store. And so they didn't technically fall into one category, but they could not go there and do that. There was a lot of sort of in the middle. So I wanted to thank you for really honing in on that. And I want to thank the the home delivered meal and the Give a Lift volunteers, because it's not an easy thing to continue to want to do this. And I understand that very many of them were continuing to do that and serve the public. So we're all very grateful for that. And then just getting back real quickly to the idea of the testing and the percentages. So yesterday, when the governor did the presser, he had these slides, and the one that was showing that this percentage of people getting tested, the percentage of people that were actually positive had been going down, and that was one of those metrics. And that last slide said 6%, but to some other people's points, today on Arizona Department of Health, it's 8%. So I'm looking forward to when the maybe Saturday's results, since they did all that testing, hopefully that's going to bring that more in line, because as of today, that percent went back up again. So we're all being vigilant. We all are very grateful, though, that the governor does seem to be following that protocol. And please make sure you let us know what you need, if you need anything at all, because you're helping us. Some down the line, we can help you. So we really appreciate everything that you're doing, and Captain Kratzer too, back there hiding. We see you.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, and we've kind of found a new niche, I think, with the drive-by birthdays and the drive-by greetings. So we're looking forward to that, and I think we have 3 slated for the next week. So.
All right. Well, I know someone who's got one on Sunday. I might have to talk to you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Our next is our consent agenda, and unless anybody wants anything taken off, if I could get a motion.
Move approval of consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
So now we'll get to, thank you, everyone. Get to the meat of our meeting. Our first item, please. Grady?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. Mayor and Council, we've been in the budget season for quite some time now. You recall we had a preliminary budget workshop back in February when we had the council workshop retreat. And then 2 weeks ago, we had a budget workshop on the annual proposed budget. David Pock, our finance director, is going to go through a presentation right now. I do want to just echo our comments, though. One of the most important actions that the council takes each year is the adoption of the annual operating and capital budgets. Those budgets really set in place the council's priorities for the next year ahead. They are a policy statement, not only from an operational standpoint and a capital standpoint, but they also very much set forth for the staff the priorities that you have set through with those documents that you adopt. So it's taken very seriously, and with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to, and before I go off on that, as was mentioned at the council budget workshop 2 weeks ago, in light of the COVID-19 situation and the impacts on revenues, we are going to be watching very carefully our revenue impacts from this situation, and we are planning on going forward to you on a quarterly basis, and if necessary to make adjustments to the adopted budget. We can only go downwards, but that would be what we'd be doing, is making adjustments that way. In addition to that, we have talked 2 weeks ago about capital improvement projects for next fiscal year, and really focusing on what I call the 4 urgent ones that have to do with the panorama drainage, the roundabout, the lighting, which is failing over at the fountain, and what's the 4th one?
Roundabout and the Golden Eagle.
Yes, and the Golden Eagle Dam impoundment, which we've had issues with flooding in the past with the dam. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Pock, who is going to give a presentation to the council and the public.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Here we go again. So it's tentative budget time. We've seen this before. Shouldn't be very new information, but I'll try and keep it as interesting as finance can possibly be. Slide 2, the fiscal year 20 revenue update. This was a late addition to the packet. I actually sent it out as an email to the council, but it might be the first time that anybody that's a member of the public that downloaded the packet seen it. I'd got some preliminary April numbers just the other day, and I thought they were important enough to include in the presentation for this year. You can see on the slide, there's the red dashed line with the dot. April preliminary numbers are coming in at about 1.3 million. That together with the revenues already collected for TPT brings us in at $10,890,000 for the year. Our budget for the entire year was $10,990,000. So as long as we can get that last 100,000 in the last 2 months of the fiscal year, we'll be all right. Actually, that will come into play a little bit later in the next couple slides, but I thought that was important. We'll keep watching. Obviously, the April collections for us is for March activity. So we still had 2/3 of the month of March where everything was pretty, quote unquote, steady. I don't want to say normal. So this next month, the collections that come in during the month of May will be a real big determinant to see the effect that the stay-at-home orders had on the town. So I will keep everybody updated on that. This type of slide is going to be kind of the format that I'll use during the quarterly budgets, not only the total, but also each individual category that we track, and then so that we can see historical data as well.
Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
do you want questions now or after the presentation?
Well,
I do have a question slide at the end. If we go through, then maybe we can.
I had a question about this chart.
Sure.
go ahead, Alan.
In looking at the, it's a little hard, long distance, but the last one, which looks like it dips down, looks like May receipts.
Okay.
It looks like the May receipts look like they dipped down. Is that correct?
Okay, so in 2019, the green line, if you are seeing that, that was actually that's the entire fiscal year 2019. So yes, last May and June, both are declining at that point. Is that your question? The fiscal year 20, we don't have the actual April number yet, so that's what the red line is. And obviously, we don't have May or June as well, so those will be added.
That's helpful. That's helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
Mike?
But that's typically when it always dips down every year,
Correct.
right? I mean,
Right.
heading into the summer. Yeah.
Yeah. It definitely looks like September through March are kind of our higher months. So,
Thank you.
all right. So then the next slide, overall budget considerations, just kind of to go repeat this again. There were considerations made based on the COVID-19 pandemic. The budget process actually started in January, so we were quite a ways into it before the situation took effect, but we did go back in and make some changes. We did a 30% reduction in TPT, what we expected to come in for TPT for April, May, and June. That would affect the ending fund balance, which is obviously important going into the following fiscal year, knowing what kind of position we'd be in. As seen on the previous slide, that's not looking like we're going to be doing a lot better than those assumptions. We also have an increased contingency amount for next year of $1.7 million. That's budget authority. It doesn't won't be spent if we don't have revenues to spend it. So then, as Grady mentioned, we're only doing high priority capital projects, basically projects that have either already started or that need to be finished. So those are the ones that will be continuing throughout the summer, the first quarter of the fiscal year. Again, budget authority is not the same as fund balance. Budget authority is the permission. Fund balance is the actual, the available financial resources, so the dollars. Also, increased visibility starting at the first quarter. After the summer break, when council comes back, August, September, I'll have the final year-end numbers for you. And then we'll start the month following each quarter. So October, the second meeting in October, I'll be able to give you first quarter results. Obviously, adjustments to expenditures can be made if it's needed based on revenues. And then the final point for tonight, this is the adoption of the tentative budget. The total budget across all funds is $33.9 million, and that sets the maximum, so we would not be able to go above that no matter what. Next slide, as far as revenue assumptions, TPT, we didn't include revenues for some of the major projects that are almost finished at especially Copperwind expansion. Keystone, there's portions of that that could be finished throughout the fiscal year, but none of those revenues were included. Also, you'll see on the next slide for revenue, the increase in the TPT rate that took effect in October accounts for most of the increase in TPT for next year. Let's see. And then we're also using the existing fee schedule. There had been plans to look at that and possibly revise it before the beginning of the next fiscal year, but we're going to come back in fall based on everything that's happened. So, as far as state shared revenue, we received the original estimates in mid-March. Not perfect timing, but it was enough time for them to realize that there was a problem and that they'd have to do some revised numbers. So we're looking for those in the next couple weeks. The ones that have changed will be the state shared sales tax, vehicle license tax, and the HERF revenues. And we'll talk about those a little bit more. As far as general fund revenues for next year, again, you can see that there's about a $1.3 million difference in TPT collections. Just over $1 million of that is the increase, the 0.3%. So it really takes that into account. State shared revenues, this was our preliminary numbers, the estimates that we received, the 6.8. Just looking into those a little bit more and trying to do some rationalization around there. 3.6 million of that is the income tax. So that won't change. We'll get the 3.6, and that's not a problem.
David, just
yes.
for everybody's purpose, so that's always lags a year behind, right?
Right.
So
It's actually
based on collections actually from 2 years.
2 years, right. So it would have been people's income tax that they filed for 2018 that was collected in 2019 and then distributed to Arizona cities and towns.
The situation we're in now might take on just the income tax maybe 2 years, but we want to start like
We want to
tracking
remember
and
it's
trying to
there.
make some modifications if we need to, like next year. That's why
Absolutely.
This is very important.
Absolutely. Yeah, so fiscal year 22 would be the first year that we'll have possibly reduced income, state shared income taxes. So looking at the remaining, the two that go into the general fund, HERF goes into streets fund, so that doesn't come into play here. But the vehicle license tax and the state shared sales tax, I went and did some calculating. I just took 15% off as a guess. And if they reduced it by that amount, then we'd receive about 2.7, and that would make this number, instead of 6.8, it would be about 6.3. So just to give you an idea of where I'm thinking it's going to go. And so we'd make those adjustments, obviously, as we go along. So then moving on to expenditure considerations. We had talked briefly before about the contingency. Specifically, that contingency amount is budgeted within the general government department. Excuse me. Again, provides budget authority if the revenues are received, and it's $1.7 million for the year. I'll make the point now that since that is in general government department, if it needed to move to a different department or to a different fund, it would need council approval. So you would know about it. If you take the contingency numbers out of this year and last year, you have about a $500,000 difference. So just to give you some perspective on that. Also on the expenditure side, we did add an internal service fund for technology replacement. The internal service funds are basically just an internal moving of funds from each department division into a fund that we can accumulate funds to do IT improvements. Those charges are going to be based on the FTE count of each division and department. So then as far as general fund expenditures, you can see them here. Town council went down. There was a full-time, part of a FTE that was funded through town council that moved to administration. There was some other reorganizations from various departments into administration. So that explains some of the increase there. Everything else pretty much falls into line. You can see the general government line increased, and it includes that 1.7 million.
Do you want to explain the development services and the reduction there?
Sure. So prior, this current fiscal year and prior, we've had third-party contracts where we'll actually receive money from a developer or contractor to expedite maybe an inspection, to do plan review, something like that. We'll get revenue from the contractor, but then go and pay the invoices for outside services to do those inspections or plan reviews. So now, going forward, we're stepping out of that process. The contractors can go directly to the plan review or the inspectors, and they'll take care of those charges. So that's why that one was reduced. And then public safety, so.
David, just want to mention with that number that looks big, the 13.6%, I know I mentioned this before, but without the contingency, it's closer to 3.
Right, absolutely. And I probably should have had that on there as well, so yeah.
Of which public safety is consuming almost all of that. 3%.
And that's. All right, so then in addition, and maybe just to explain a little bit about the budget process and how it's done here with the town. So the budget started off with 1920 base budget and was carried over into 2021. Anything in addition to that needed to be submitted as a supplemental, so that's what's shown on this slide. So to keep the services and everything as consistent as possible, that's why the base budget's carried over each year. Additional supplements, there were just over 1 million submitted. Out of that, only about a third are being recommended. Of that third, 255,000 is a one-time expenditure. It's one and done. 91,000 is ongoing, so that'd be year after year after year. There is $24,000 in revenue offsets. That could be for T-shirt sales from an event, something to help offset the cost to these expenditures. At the very end of the day, it's about $322,000 that the general fund is contributing. All right, then I threw in a slide for personnel. We haven't had this in our previous budget meetings, so I thought it was time to see it. You can obviously see the high points and the low points. We did add one FTE into the budget for next year, and that is for a park attendant. So. And then priority capital projects, we had spoken about this. These were identified by council at the last, at the budget workshop. These are funded through the capital projects fund, so it's already funds that we have available in set aside and committed for this purpose. It's not revenue driven. I will mention here though that any excess revenues that we receive over expenditures first go to fulfill our policy obligations, and then any additional goes into the capital projects fund. So obviously the work could continue through the summer, like we had said, and for other capital projects budgeted for the year, we'll look again after the first quarter. And those are the 4 projects at 2.9. Now we're at
Mayor?
questions.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Yes.
Just a quick question. I know the retirement of bonds certainly helps the taxpayers. Is there any benefit to the town?
Yes.
I didn't hear.
Okay, the question from Councilmember Magazine is the retirement of the bond. We have it's a refinancing bond that we did that included the community center. I believe the Mountain Preserve was also part of that. Several years ago, we did a refinancing.
On the original.
On the original. And so that will be paid, I believe, at the end of May or June of this year. So that frees up about $350,000, correct?
Right. So there is one remaining payment on the general obligation bond that was used for Saguaro. That's the money that's collected through the secondary property tax. That's being paid off by July 1st. And then the MPC, the Municipal Property Corporation bond, which is basically just a pledged revenue. It's pledged to TPT sales tax revenue. That's also being paid by July 1st, and it's about $350,000.
Where does this show up in the budget?
So just to clarify, so the Saguaro bond that's going to be paid off, Alan, is hitting the secondary property taxes. My understanding, it's a revenue bond and general obligation bond, sorry.
Correct.
It's general obligation bond, and basically, once that's paid off, it's paid off and it comes off people's taxes. The town has no benefit, whereas the other one, the bond is we pledged through the Municipal Property Corporation for the community center, and also I believe it was the Mountain Preserve. Once that's paid off, that's going to free up about $350,000 money available, so that kind of helps us through next year a lot.
Right.
Did that answer your question?
Mostly. What are the dates for the retirement of those bonds?
July 1st is when the bonds are called, so the payments need to be made before July 1st.
So when would we accrue the $350,000?
It was already approved in this current fiscal year's budget for the payments to be made.
No, I understand the payments, but as I understand it, once those bonds are paid off, we gain $350,000. Is that not correct?
It becomes usable for other purposes.
Which the budget that is proposed before you tonight has taken that into consideration and helps kind of alleviate some of the pressure we have on our budget for next year.
Is it mentioned in the budget itself?
It will be in the budget message
Yeah.
that goes out with the adopted budget.
So contained in the 33 million or whatever it is 350,000 from the retirement of the bonds, correct?
So
Is that correct?
if there was still an additional payment needed if we were still a year away from the bonds being called and being expired, then yes, it would be included in the 33 million. However, it's going to be paid off, so we won't have any bond payments town-wide that will be required for next fiscal year. For instance, the tax levies are only going to be for the Cottonwoods Maintenance District and the Eagle Mountain CFD. There won't be a town-wide secondary property tax, and there won't be any pledge or requirements to set aside a certain amount of sales tax to pay the municipal property corporation bonds, because they'll be gone.
I'm having trouble. I'm having trouble getting down in the weeds. To simplify, once these bonds are expire, and they'll expire fairly soon, we will accrue about $350,000 benefit, which is in the 33 million. Is that correct?
Can I just, Alan, it's just something we're not spending on. So rather than it being like a sum of money that we're getting, it's an expense we don't have. So I don't think there's like a separate anything we have to do, right?
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, so it's an expense we don't have.
Right. So if you think of it in household terms, you pay off your car. You're not going to have your car payment next year, but so that frees it up, your paycheck to go to something else. So a vacation home.
And the budget that is before you tonight already anticipated that being paid off. So it in a way, it's already benefiting next year's budget that way.
And in this presentation, we were talking about the general fund. It didn't have an effect in the general fund anyways, because the money was paid out of the debt service fund, which is somewhere else. But
Thank you.
Right.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you.
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I just think in light of that, it's, it should be highlighted or, tooting our own horn. I mean, we won't have any bonded indebtedness come July 2nd. And, when tax bills go out in October or in the fall, you're not going to see a line item on there from Town of Fountain Hills secondary tax. So it's, we've been without bonded indebtedness. I mean, it's been a long, long time because starting in the 90s, early 90s, we had, had a road bond initially. And so I don't know if we've ever not had any bonded indebtedness, but I just think that's quite and obviously we can't take much credit for it because it's just a timing issue, but it just should be noted that that's what's happening this coming summer, and it's just something to be noted in terms of, we're going to be talking about sometime in the future, perhaps, some additional money for Fountain Park and or, our pavement management program. So it's just something that's important, I think.
To the Vice Mayor's point, this all is looked at when we have rating agencies look at us, and they look at our indebtedness, and they basically look at also, our budget and our finances and all that, and it looks very good for us not to have any bonded indebtedness. Even when you do have bonded indebtedness, it's not a bad thing. In fact, it's going to be one of those things, so long as you're taking care of your assets and your infrastructure, it's okay, as long as you have the resources to be able to pay that money back. So, but I think it's a great position that we're in. And I think as we've talked, I think there's some major infrastructure needs that we have in the town, and we're going to need to start planning ahead and take advantage of our situation. But maybe we wouldn't do it at such a short-term period of time like we've done. The Saguaro bond was a 5-year bond. It's very unusual for an asset that has a 20, 30-year life. And everybody I've talked to, our financial advisor, other city managers are shocked that we would have done a major bond like that. 24 million, wasn't it? Or
8 million.
I'm sorry, 8 million. 24 was the first one that didn't pass. Anyways, but they're very shocked that that's something that you would do for just 5 years. So, and the thing is, people are going to come in town, live in town, and so the people today that are here, they shouldn't be paying for the future generations. It should be, everybody should be paying towards that for those improvements. So, any other questions for David as it relates to the budget?
I will mention, I didn't have a slide on this, but we will be back on June 2nd to adopt a final budget. And then again, 2 weeks later to do the tax levies for Eagle Mountain and Cottonwood, so.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I do have a real quick one.
Sure.
On the capital projects is Fountain Hills Boulevard shoulder, kind of number 5, just barely made the list. I mean, so we're going to keep that up there if we can.
Yeah, so we're going to be coming back to you on the 19th, and I think that'd be appropriate when we have the discussion about the pavement management. We have some additional information that we have from ADOT that we can share with you then. And, you know, while it's not agendized specifically for that purpose, we would like to try to obtain direction from you, because I think that the money we just received from the sale of the fire station will cover a big chunk of that shoulder widening, and there's a couple different processes we can go through to help that. And I think maybe this COVID situation might actually help get some good bids on that project as well.
Thank you. If there's nothing else, could we get a motion, please? Mike?
Make a motion to approve the tentative budget. Is that the?
Resolution 2020-22.
That's it. So move.
Can we get a second?
Oh, second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Aye?
Aye.
Thank you. Thanks very much, David. I think you're up next, too.
All right. So the next topic that we'll be discussing is the financial policy updates. This was mentioned, obviously, during the council retreat. It was something that we went back and took a look at and made some updates, not throughout the whole policy, but just one section, the fund balance section. The current financial policy was originally adopted in 2003. The most recent revision was done in April of 2017, just about 3 years ago. Again, Section 3 is what I had been looking at. It basically outlines the purpose and importance of fund balance, the different fund balance categories, and then fund descriptions, requirements, and uses for the various funds. General fund, special revenue fund, debt service, and then the capital project fund. The proposed revisions that I'm proposing tonight are basically just some minor wording changes, that sort of thing, to clarify the policy and increase its understandability. The first major change would be removing the 10% requirement from the assigned portion of the general fund. That requirement is redundant now since we've implemented replacement funds. So we're doing the same thing in 2 different places, and it's not very efficient. So in addition to that, we would want to add a 20% requirement. There is currently a 20% requirement for this current rainy day fund, which is basically a stabilization fund. We want to double that and keep 20% in unassigned. This is based on best practices from GFOA, the Government Finance Officers Association. Really, the whole point of keeping that amount of reserves is just to basically deal with situations that we're currently dealing with. It's volatility of the economy, the susceptibility to different revenue sources for the town. So it gives us a little bit of a buffer. Then finally, we added a description and use for replacement funds. Like I said, we hadn't had those the last time that this was done, so we needed to outline that, what those are used for. So then why 20% for unassigned? If you recall, during the council retreat and the budget workshop, I ended fund balance, the unassigned fund balance, and showed you percentages and then months, basically, of revenues that we would be keeping in reserves. 20% actually equates to about 2.5 months worth of revenue. Our TPT collections makes up over 50% of the revenues for the general fund. That actually lags by 1.5 to 2 months just on the mechanics. Something's sold in February in a store, that sales reported to DOR the following month, and then it gets sent out by DOR to the town. So in terms of the current situation that we're in, we are just now getting to the March sales, and that was before everything got basically shut down and the stay-at-home order was imposed. We won't know until June what the effect was for April and so on. So as long as we keep this 20% unassigned, it's the target. Basically, we can outlast that lag and be able to prepare, and we won't be on our heels if something like this happens in the future. So
When you say revenue, is that about 3.5 million, or how much is the 20%?
it would be right about 3.2 million, I think, just over
So it's the
3.2.
average, because you do the 5 years, so
Right,
16
right.
million? Or-
It's the average annual revenues, general fund revenues for the previous 5 years.
Okay,
Right, sorry,
thanks.
that's.
So we
big.
might want to have that amount somewhere around there, because I think we were figuring about 16 million, so 20% of that, 3.2. What is that actual amount that we want to make sure we have in there?
Yeah, so if we were keeping just over 3 million in unassigned and 3 million in the rainy day fund, it would give us about 5 months of revenue, which would be nice. And that would follow I think 45 to 60% is what GFOA recommends. So we're a little short of that, but we would have the rainy day fund plus the unassigned plus our other fund balances that we could target as well if we needed to.
Okay.
But it definitely gives us some time to react to situations like this. So, and that's it for this one.
Thank you. Anyone on the phone have any questions? No, Mike?
Move to adopt Resolution 2020-16.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you, it passed. Thanks for all your work. Thanks for everybody. Our last regular agenda item is consideration of the Civic Center improvements. Grady?
Thank you, Mayor.
And-
Mayor and Council, the item before you.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Yes,
Before we
ma'am,
go-
sorry.
I'm gonna sit this vote out.
This next one coming up?
Yes.
Okay. Aaron?
That's fine. Councilmember LaCrone, if to the extent you want to make any statement, that's fine, but otherwise we'll just consider you to not, I guess you just won't vote in this matter.
I
Okay.
can go ahead. Out of an abundance of caution, I happen to know the owner, and I'm very close with, my best friend is his sister. So I just felt it would probably be appropriate if I set this
Thank
out.
you.
Thank
Thanks.
you. I'll stay on the line.
You better. Okay.
Thank
I'm
you
sorry,
for
go ahead.
making us aware of that, council member. That's helpful, and it's good to be on record that way, so that you can never be too safe. That's awesome. I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to this item over to Public Works Director Weldy, who has a brief presentation on this project.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, council members, this area is actually the event circle that lies between the community center and the library. It actually came to light that we were having challenges there in late 2010. At that time, the staff responsible for maintaining the area, and it was a shared responsibility, they decided to do a little bit of maneuvering and some grinding to take away some trip hazards. As it increasingly became challenging to do so, the original proposal to put this in as a capital project was in 2012. Since that time, it has either been deferred or there have been financial challenges, and so staff has been asked to go back and do what they can to minimize the hazards, and we have done that. But we are at the point in time now at this juncture that we really need to take action on this again to minimize the hazards. Leading up to this, we had a local engineer do the final design on it, Montgomery Engineering, in an attempt to create some competition but yet reduce the cost for advertising and everything else necessary. We reached out to 4 of our job order contract holders. 3 of them responded, the 4th one did not, without cause. The prices were the highest to lowest, $151,000, $127,000, and then the contract, which we have tonight, $97,000. So I'm proposing that we select this and we move forward as quickly as possible. The contractor has agreed that they can do the demo work and get the pavers in by the end of the fiscal year, and ideally have it opened up for use at that time. As a reminder, there is simply no convenient time for construction to our amenities. However, this is a less challenging time for that because the temperatures will be up and we will have less participation on the outdoor activities. Of course, we'll continue to have indoor activities at the community center and the library when that is permitted. With that said, I'll answer any of the questions that I am able to do, if you have any now.
And thank you. Grady?
I just had a question, Justin. We've had a council member who had a good question. It had to do with the owner's allowance, and could you explain that, how it works with a project like this?
Yes, absolutely. Oftentimes with a project like this, we have some possible unknowns in regards to tree roots that may or may not need to be addressed once the concrete is removed, irrigation and or electrical. We do the best we can when putting these projects together to identify all of these items. However, things change as years go on and things get moved around, and some documents may or may not be as accurate as we would portray them to be as a staff or as professionals. So this is simply a safety net that will only be used and authorized by myself or the town manager should it become necessary for additional funding. If we did not have this built in and we had a challenge, it could create delays to the project and possibly leave us with an unsightly issue while we wait for the council to reconvene and do an amendment to the contract.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Any questions from anyone on the phone?
I have a comment, but not a question.
Go right ahead.
I had asked the mayor and Grady to remove this from the agenda, and they thought we'd be better off having a discussion. But let me tell you why I want it removed. I walked the area, and frankly, I didn't see anything that serious, but I'm not the judge of that. The bigger issue for me is that we are delaying until the end of the first quarter making a decision on several projects. I don't see the urgency of spending $100,000 right now. Given the projections for the virus, we could see a further decline in sales tax than we expect. I don't think we should be spending money where we don't absolutely have to spend money. So I'm against funding this at this time because we're only talking 5 months from now till the end of the quarter. At the end of the quarter, seems to me we can assess the situation and make a decision.
Thank you, Alan. Any comments?
Mayor, if I may.
Councilman?
Thank you. And Alan, I totally agree with what you're saying. I have a little different view on it. Number one, we've got a proposal and a contract that's sitting here that is actually below the average market price today. And to remove it and to replace the pavers, they're coming in at a remarkably great price. And number two, if we had one trip and fall, just one trip and fall, where some person my age might be shuffling along opposed to walking along, that would trip over one little edge and break an arm or a hip, it would cost us much more money than what we're talking about doing it correctly. And I too have walked that a lot of times, and it truly does need to be replaced. And with the pricing that we're getting today, which I was surprised, I sat down and ran the numbers as if I were going to do the project, and it was within maybe 15 cents a square foot of what I would do it for, and nobody in town is going to do it cheaper than I am. So I'm telling you, we've got a good deal, and I think we'd be making a mistake not moving forward with this.
Thank you, Councilman.
Mayor, just a quick comment.
Yes, sir.
Quick comment. I understand the thinking. I understand that we have a lawsuit pending. It's been pending for a couple of years now because someone tripped. Well, I took a walk around part of around the park, just a little bit of it, and I saw seams. I saw seams that were sticking up. Not a lot, but enough that somebody could trip. We could have people tripping and falling all over this town and have lawsuits all over the place. I don't happen to think, though, that because we have one lawsuit from one person on this, that's enough reason to move ahead with a $100,000 expenditure. I understand that we're getting a very good deal, but $100,000 can look like a hell of a lot later in the year, given the virus and the impact it's had.
Thank you, Alan. Anybody else? Mike?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, this isn't something that's just come up. This has been talked about for years and years, as Justin explained. And I mean, I personally know a woman who tripped and fell, black eye and everything in Fountain Park, and another woman I know tripped and fell on Avenue of the Fountains. And so this stuff happens, and it doesn't take much. And, this particular area, with Dark Sky and other groups and the garden being put in, I mean, that whole plaza is used more than it has been in the past, and I think it's going to be used more in the future as we go on here and people see it as a gathering place. So I think it's critical that we correct the things that are out there that aren't good, and I just think aesthetically too it's going to be much better. So I mean, I know the timing can be questioned, but I think this is more of a need than a want. So with that, I'll go ahead and, okay, go ahead. So.
Thank you, Mike. Just appreciate that you're going to make the motion. I just wanted to mention too that this year's capital budget. It's budgeted for $150,000, so it'll be less than that. And if we don't do the contingency, it'll be a nice savings there. The capital projects that we were just talking about, the 4, maybe 5 for next year, that they're still there and they're the priority. This in itself, this project wouldn't affect that those are still on for next year. And again, we had this at a couple of places, including at our retreat, and talked about it for many years. It's in progress. It's a project that's in progress, and I think that doing this now is also something at the end of the year that we're have some work still being done. We have people who are being employed, and I think it's important that, and I said this in 2008, that we try not to be paralyzed in everything that we do, and try to look at these all as separate items. And I think that this is unrelated to next year. It's something that is safety related, and now stated, we're stating that we don't think it's safe, so I think we need to move on this, as Aaron looks at me, so there. Yes, I know someone wanted to say something.
I do want to say something, Mayor. One moment.
Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Let there be light. Art,
Okay,
did,
I'm sorry for the delay, but I do have a comment, and I'd like to agree with Councilman Magazine. I also walked that area, and I don't see an immediate need. And I also thought that I wanted to wait on this due to the Dark Skies initiatives to build their facility. And I think that ultimately we may have a whole different design for that area. Once that happens, we may be throwing good money after bad here, and I think that we should give them an opportunity to raise the funds necessary and determine what we're going to do at that time. If the economy continues to falter, and who knows what's going to happen with construction costs, but we may be able to get this at at the price we have now or better in the future. So I would say there's no reason to rush at spending this. Just because it was budgeted in the capital improvements budget doesn't mean we have to spend it.
thank you.
Mayor, if I
Yes,
may.
Dennis.
So, clear back when we did the Centennial Circle, that sidewalk should have been taken out at that time and replaced. And we continued to go in and throw money at grinding the concrete down, and that's not an inexpensive venture. I mean, we spend, I'd have to ask the director how much money we spend on grinding concrete. That's expensive all by itself. And then you throw on top of the possibility of an accident, and that will be expensive. And I have to agree, I also walk around the fountain, and it's about time to start doing some grinding or some replacement at the fountain level as well. So with pricing where it's at, I don't see the pricing going down at all. We've got a good price, and I would encourage the council to move forward with making this happen.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilman?
Mayor?
Yes.
Just one, excuse me, one last comment. I want to make sure I'm not misunderstood. I'm not against the project. All I'm saying is, let's wait 5 months, see what our financial situation is, and make a decision. If we're okay financially, I will be voting for it. But I don't see that we have to. I know we've been waiting a long time, but 5 months is tomorrow. I mean, we're talking a very short time.
Thank you, sir.
Mayor?
Yes.
Mayor, if I may?
You bet.
You know, that would probably be October, November when we would actually get the project done, right as all of our snowbirds come back to town and it becomes 10 times more active down there. So I don't agree with that.
Well, Mayor, I'd even say we postpone it even longer and wait till the Dark Skies initiative, and if they're going to be able to build their facility. And when they build their facility and the whole place is under construction, that's the time to finalize everything and tie it all together.
Mayor, if I may?
You bet.
If the Dark Sky Committee gets the millions and millions of dollars put together to build their facilities, the Centennial Circle and everything around the Centennial Circle will have an entire new look, and it will be taken out and completely revamped to be brand new.
Exactly.
So that's right. That's right. And the big if is, when will they get the 20-some or 30-some million dollars to do that project?
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Madam Mayor, I just thought with the Dark Sky building that was at the site where the garden is, and I didn't anticipate it impacting the circle at all. Can you address that at all, Grady, or?
That's why I was looking at him before, because I wasn't sure.
There are some areas over by the garden There's pathways and there's a unlandscaped area that I was anticipating closest to the garden right now that would be impacted by the new Discovery Center. So I've never had any discussions, and I was very close to the organizers of this project, that anything would happen to that Centennial Circle and the appearance and the look of it. I mean, because what I'm hearing is they're going to have their own look and appearance, but it's going to be mostly with the building, and it might be with the immediate grounds around it, meaning the surrounding portion around the building. So I don't believe this is quite a distance away from that. So I don't anticipate that changing.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes.
I'm a member of the board of the Discovery Center. It will not affect the Centennial Circle at all, but more importantly, we have to raise $18 million, and it's not going to happen overnight. And once we raise it, it's going to take at least a couple of years to construct it. So, as I said, I'm in favor of this project. I don't think we can wait until the Discovery Center is built. I just want to hold off until, for 5 months, the end of the quarter, we can get a report on our sales tax and make a determination.
Thank you. Any other comments? You know, I forgot to ask this for anything tonight. Did we ever have any comment cards or emails? No? Okay, thank you. Okay, did you want to go ahead?
Yeah, with that, I'll go ahead and move to approve the motion as written in the packet.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you. Any further discussion? A roll call? Oh, we'll do a roll call so we can hear. All those in favor? Liz?
Mayor Dickey,
Aye?
Vice Mayor,
Arno?
sorry,
Aye.
I have an old sheet. Councilmember Brown,
Aye.
Councilmember Magazine,
Nay.
Councilmember Tolis,
Nay.
Councilmember Spellich,
Aye.
and Councilmember LaCrone is abstaining, so the vote is 5-2. Passes.
4-2.
4-2, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you very much for all your work and answering the questions.
You're welcome. Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a comment in regards to some of the questions and statements that were made here tonight. The Public Works Department, including the Community Services Department, we work around the clock year-long to not only grind but replace the walking surfaces town-wide. And we have several locations that we work on that are much smaller dollar amounts per increment, but are included in much larger contracts that are approved here in these chambers. I would encourage anybody that sees any trip hazards in any of our amenities on the sidewalk, streets, or in the parks to please reach out to us and let us know. We certainly would like to be able to address them at a minimum and mark them and get them corrected sooner rather than later. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense. Should have thought of that. Appreciate that very much. Next, we just go to council discussion direction to the town manager. Does anybody have anything? Nothing? Grady? I don't remember. No. Thanks a lot. So we're having another week coming up, and we have a special day on Sunday. So even those who aren't fortunate enough to spend the actual day with her or your kids, happy Mother's Day. It's a good day to appreciate our family and our friends and to celebrate them. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.
Aye.
Thank you.